Hey everyone, and once again, thanks so much for joining us for Tech Talk Live featuring IxChariot. Today's webcast is presented using a screen share with live demo. We do have a good bit of information to go through in the next 45 minutes. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen and submit your questions. We will answer these after the webcast. We are also giving everyone who has joined us today a free trial of IxChariot. We will be sending you an email with instructions after the webcast. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Taran Singh, Senior Product Manager for IxChariot here at Ixia.
Hey, Christina, thank you very much. Hi, all. Thank you for joining. I'll spend about 30 minutes of time with you, and I appreciate you joining. This webinar is focused on me sharing some of the latest of the product from my IxChariot family. I'm going to be talking about the latest version, 8. It's a virtual edition of a product. I'll walk you through that. Then I'll actually go through a product demonstration of it so you can get a sense of what the product looks like, and we'll close it with some Q&A and some closing remarks. Once again, my name is Taran Singh. You can reach me at tsingh@ixiacom.com. Now, why would you be interested in network assessment to begin with? Generally, there are two reasons. One is you'd like to assess network performance using real device and learn about its behavior, either end-to-end or to see how the network behaves. The other one is to gain visibility in your network in the context of applications and services that essentially run on that network. The way you do that is to validate a network device or an end-user device. You might use it to do pre-deployment network readiness to support a new service. You might want to identify performance optimization either on a device level or a network, and verify network changes and configuration management by running tests, making sure that the changes in fact are optimal. And the way IxChariot comes into play here is that the product and solutions used to verify network service level agreements. You can look at the key performance indicators of a network. You can do mobile device performance. For Wi-Fi, we can assess the capacity of an access point in the infrastructure end-to-end. A lot of times customers use IxChariot end-to-end to do unified communications readiness by way of emulating voice over IP calls end-to-end across their branch offices, and validate hypervisor performance of the networking stack. And that's the demo that I'll actually be walking you through today. So what is IxChariot? It's an industry-standard network assessment product. It's in use by well over 5,000 IT and network professionals worldwide. It's essentially used to measure network performance and applications. It runs on real devices and servers to model the application's behavior. The way that's done is with the use of performance endpoints that are available for a variety of different operating systems and architectures. And I'll walk you through that a little bit further as I go through it. So the way IxChariot works is the performance measurements are made by sending real data between pairs of network devices running Ixia's endpoints. So what will typically happen is you will have a web front end with which you'll configure test parameters. Those are then normally sent to endpoints that are running on any number of devices, which I'll come to shortly. And then the test instructions are shared between endpoints, which really comprise of what we call pairs. You can think of pairs as simply a pair of conversations. So if you and I are having a conversation, that's a pair. Or between two network devices, that would be a connection that's established and traffic that runs over it. Application traffic, by way of a variety of different traffic profiles we have, is then actually run between the endpoint devices, and then results are then sent back from the endpoints back to the web dashboard. We have a variety of different ways that you might set up a test. You can have a hub and spoke. You can have full mesh or a variety of a mesh that you configure. You can think of mesh very simply as if you had a variety of endpoints or devices in your network, you wanted to create a logical topology, you would then create some topologies with pairs and associate tests to those pairs. And I'll walk you through that in the product demonstration. Now I want to focus a little bit on some of the tenets of IxChariot. The first key feature is the performance endpoints. They are small user applications that run on your device. So that turns your device into a test port. It runs just like any other application that uses the actual network stack and the transport for sending and receiving application traffic. And these endpoints are free to download. If you search for endpoint library on any search engine, you'll land at our support site that allows you to download endpoints for a variety of different systems. Now, what endpoints are available in the context of testing? You can get them for servers and workstations such as Windows, Mac, Linux. You can deploy them on virtual machines. It happens to be a software agent, so it can be deployed on any hypervisor. So it's hypervisor agnostic. You can download them for phones, which I'll get to. A very small form factor IoT hardware is also supported, such as BeagleBone Black or Raspberry Pi. It can also run on consumer hardware when vendors request that. A quick note on mobile performance endpoints. If you happen to have an Android-based phone or an iOS-based phone, you can go to the Google Play Store, App Store, and search for the word endpoint, and you'll arrive at an IxChariot endpoint that we very recently updated. Now, it's a very quick and effective way that you can use to measure upstream and downstream performance of your Wi-Fi network, where one endpoint is your mobile phone, and another one could be a fixed one or another mobile handset. So it lets you verify performance of actual handsets and see how that actual AP behaves. Next, the latest version of Chariot is a virtual product. So there's a virtual deployment that happens to roll out the backend system, and then everything that's done from a user point of view is web-based. So there's a web-based platform. This HTML browser is used to access the product, configure, test, and run them. It's a multi-user system. It's very easy to configure, and I'll walk you through that. The other one is the nature of, so you have endpoints that you deploy on your devices. There's a virtual appliance that you roll out that has all the capability to run, test, look at results. Now, let's look at what are the types of tests that we can create. The first one is performance flows. These are ready to run, calibrated flows. They essentially let you measure network and transport metrics. A variety of tests exist, TCP, UDP, and a variety of combinations of those, as well as voice over IP, where we can also do MOS scoring per call using the R-factor model. The second traffic patterns that we have is called application library. And these are used to model web applications such as those that you find on chat sites, social networking, remote access. So these are very complex applications that use modern web technology. We emulate a variety of desktop or mobile variants of the same application. And we have acquired this technology from Breaking Point ATI. Now, I wanted to share with you a couple of scenarios that would give you context of how IxChariot's used. So here we have a scenario of a customer who actually has deployed hundreds of mobile phones on which they've installed IxChariot endpoints, and they're conducting high-density AP testing upstream and downstream. And these are using real devices, and its behavior, the way in which a particular mobile device works, TCP, UDP, a variety of voice over IP, is modeled very well because you're actually using the actual handset versus an emulator. The other one I wanted to share with you is a very different use case. Here we're testing, a customer would test a server, a multi-core server, in this case 24 cores, to see the performance of a variety of network interfaces that they may be interested in using to see how well they perform. So very different use cases of IxChariot. In one, you would deploy the mobile endpoints. In the second case here, you would deploy a Windows or Linux endpoint on a rather powerful multi-core server. Now with that, I'll switch to a product walkthrough, but before I do, I wanted to share with you what it looks like. What I'll be doing today is setting up a basic 2-endpoint scenario, all in a in a hypervisor environment, and we're going to run a couple of UDP and TCP tests just to get you a sense of how the product works. And I'll also show you the mock-up of the scenario that we've actually created. With that, I'll switch quickly. So firstly, I'll share with you the environment that we've got. So we have the virtual appliance deployed right here, the console, which is the IxChariot Web Edition, virtual edition that's deployed on a hypervisor. And then we happen to have two endpoints that are also guest Linux operating systems that are deployed. So these are simply guest OSs. They run Linux, and we can see here one of the IP addresses 10.200.24.29, and the other one come up in a second. Okay, 10.200.24.33. So here we have two guest Linux OSs running on a single server, and we're going to be basically demonstrating a high-level hypervisor performance for running traffic between these two guest OSs. So with that, I'll switch. The way you access the product is through a web browser, and I'm going to start from the top. We'll start. So the product works by creating sessions. Session is essentially a test profile. So we're going to create one. And IxChariot works in the context of, as I mentioned, pairs, endpoints, and performance flows. And so those are the three principles that I'm going to apply to create a test. So the first thing we're going to do is create a flow group. Flow group is simply a combination of from where you're going to run the test. So these are at least two endpoints. We're going to decide the direction in which the traffic is going to run, and then we're going to decide which performance flow we're going to use to actually generate the traffic. So it's really just three steps. So first, we've got a flow group. We're going to add an IP address, as I noted, from the hypervisor guest OS, 10.200.24.29, and the other one is 10.200.24.33. So now you've chosen two devices that will generate traffic. We've also decided the direction from which the traffic will initiate. So from 24.29 to 24.33. You can very quickly reverse this. Now we're going to decide the nature of the traffic. So we're going to run in this example a very basic TCP flow that lets you do application benchmarking. So pick TCP throughput from our flow library. And here we're simply going to emulate one pair or one user. At this point, we really have to decide only the next thing to be how long the test runs. So we're going to run this for about, let's say, 60 seconds, and then we'll hit the start test. It takes about a couple of seconds for the test information to go to the endpoints. And then it'll automatically switch to a real-time view, statistics, and you see that we're running this in a hypervisor environment, so you can expect really good performance in the context of running TCP between two guest OSs on the same VM hypervisor. You're able to get a lot of different ways of looking at the data. So you can look at it from the test total point of view. You can look at it from a flow group point of view. And notice we only have one flow group named flow group 1, and so you'll see 1 here. If you happen to have many of them, you can look at it from that point of view as well. You can then further drill down and look at it from a user or pair basis as well. In our context, we only have one user test, and so you see one user here. But if you happen to have many of them, you can very easily select all of them in one place or look at them in their total values. Okay, so that's the simplicity of setting up a test by choosing endpoints, picking a flow definition, deciding how long to run a test, and then running the test to look at results in real time. Now you can just as easily have many endpoints on one side. So you can have one to many. You can very easily, for example, select to run something as follows. So now you can have one endpoint initiate a TCP test to 3 other remote endpoints. You can also have one of these endpoints be a mobile device. So let's say you happen to know the IP address of your endpoint application that you want to install on a mobile phone and launch. You'll see on it the IP address of that phone. And you would type it in here, and then you can initiate an upstream traffic, or you can have downstream traffic, or you can have bidirectional traffic very quickly set up to run. Okay. One other thing I was going to walk you through is the types of flow. So we looked very briefly at TCP. We have a lot of different configuration parameters that Chariot offers in terms of rate limiting, setting up configurations on the host OS, by way of configuring buffer sizes and so forth, and they're all available here when you edit a particular flow. Aside from TCP, we have UDP that I mentioned, which also lets you understand the latency, loss, and jitter profile of the traffic of the network. And we also have an extensive library of voice over IP, so you'll see 711, AMU-law, and a variety of AMR codecs that you can run to assess an end-to-end network. And the way we do that is to add a flow from voice over IP. Let's assume we're going to run this, and we'd like to assess if 10 calls provide sufficient quality of experience. And that's all you really need to do. We can decide to run a voice call for 30 seconds. So 10 users making simultaneous calls for 30 seconds. Okay, I'll try that again. Now I want to share with you, we'll try this another time. One thing I wanted to share with you is for those who are familiar with IxChariot Desktop Edition, namely version 7.10 or 7.30, you may be interested to know what the differences are. And so I wanted to share this with you. The virtual edition essentially requires a hypervisor. And obviously, today we support, as you noticed, VMware, a VMware Player, or ESX, or workstation platforms on which you can deploy our OVA that we provide. That, compared to the desktop edition, is really a Windows application that you install on a Windows PC. So if you look at the highlights of the Chariot 8, you can deploy the server on Mac or Windows, which is different than the desktop edition. All the tests can be accessed and run from a browser or PC. Tests continue to run after the browser closes. And then, you can move to a different PC, reattach to the browser session, and continue to run the test. And inherently, this is a multi-user system. Now, if you look at, and if you're familiar with IxChariot 7, it's a desktop application, so it runs on your laptop. It has to be Windows. You can access it remotely via a remote desktop or through a VNC tool. All the tests have to be run from that same Windows PC. And it's a single user system. So there are some marked differences between the two products. We recommend, based on your use case, to choose between them as we continue to support both product lines. Okay, with that, we've come to a close. I wanted to share with you, the first thing is that if you're interested to try out 8.0, you can go to the first link, Evaluate IxChariot, from our product page. Sign up, and you will get a follow-up email that provides you all the instructions on how to launch a virtual environment on our cloud system and to try it out. You can also access our endpoint library by looking for endpoint library on a search engine. If you're interested in the mobile performance endpoint, I encourage you to look for the word endpoint in Google App Store. And if you have any further questions, you're welcome to get in touch with us. My email is tsing@ixiacom.com. And for more info, you can look at our product page at Products IxChariot on the Ixia.com website. With that, I'll hand it back to Christina for Q&A.
Yes, thanks, Taran, for presenting this material. A few questions through the Q&A. Take this moment to remind everyone, if you have questions regarding IxChariot or the IxChariot demo, click on the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen and submit your questions. Okay, first question, I'm using an older version of IxChariot. Can I use my existing script on this web-based tool?
So I'll repeat the question. If you are an existing Chariot customer, can you use your existing scripts in a new version? Yes, we have a concept called Resource Manager where you can import any of your custom SCR files. They become part of the new system, and you can use them in pretty much the same way that you have been in 7.x version.
All right, great. Another question we have is on the number of endpoints can be run at once on Chariot.
Okay. We really don't have an upper limit per se. So, for example, the customer scenario that I provided you, which had a variety of mobile handsets, happened to have more than 100 of these endpoints in one test. So we can scale very, very nicely to a few hundred endpoints running on a variety of different devices all at once.
Thanks, Taran. Another question is, dynamically detect the addresses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have this concept in Chariot called Discovery Server, and the way it works is kind of as how you're alluding. An endpoint's made aware of where it should dial home. And what that means is once the endpoint's deployed on a Windows or Linux guest OS or device, it will dial home and register itself with its IP address. So we can detect it so long as the endpoint is set up to dial home to a discovery server, which in most cases happens to be the console.
Awesome. I'm out of maintenance support on my copy of Chariot. What will it cost me to get the new version?
I think I caught that. If you're out of warranty, I think that's what I heard. Can you upgrade? Yes, I would encourage you to just contact your Ixia representative or get in touch with us through the website, and then we can connect you to someone in our inside sales team that can actually help you with that. Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. We captured everyone's attendance today, and we will be sending you an email with instructions for the one-week trial of Chariot. This will conclude our webcast. Thanks again. And for more information to join more Tech Talks, please visit our website at Ixiacom.com. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.